I will pass I will pass the buck to Angela, and thereafter we'll have a damn good meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Just to say that we are going to be recording this meeting. If you prefer not to be visible, you will need to switch off your camera. Okay. And what we do expect is that everybody keeps muted until you are asked by the chair to unmute. You're very welcome to to use the chat box facility to type comments and questions. But we expect everybody shows common courtesy to one another. Sophia, are you ready to record?
Yep, I've already hit record. Yep. So just can everyone go and mute before we get started, please? Yep, and we can get started, Joe.
Okay, so if I can start, and really the brainchild for a community-led forum came from Joe Bangu, and we held our first meeting last month, which I think on the whole was very successful. And we decided really to hold this on a monthly basis, to listen to voices in the community and really to shape how we want our community to be. So I'd briefly like to talk about a project that I was involved with, Eden Communities Project. And back in March, I actually attended a 5-week training course. And that was quite an eye-opener about developing community campaigning skills. And as a result of that, I joined the Eden Communities London and South East Facebook page. And Tariq Murad, who is here tonight, actually promoted a podcast that he does called Heston Big Local. And he reached out to the people who just completed the course. And I thought, this is fantastic. Heston's just down the road. You know, us Southall people spend plenty of time in Heston and how. I contacted him and I said, you know, I'm happy to be interviewed for your podcast. And I was really impressed with Tariq. He didn't hang about. I think I said, you know, I'm available next week. And he said, you know, how about this weekend? And we settled on the following Monday. And I have to say, being interviewed by Tariq was so refreshing, so revitalizing, that this young man is very passionate about community work. And he has interviewed so many different people from different walks of life, different parts of the country for his Heston Big Local podcast. And not that long ago, he celebrated his first year anniversary. And it was so lovely to attend with other people who'd been interviewed one Sunday afternoon. Boris Johnson turned up. No. I was absolutely shocked, but he did, listened in for a while. And it's thanks to Tariq, and he's got this amazing connection with stakeholders in Heston and Hounslow, Tony, the mayor, the local MP, and how they speak about him is just so endearing. So I'd like to introduce Tariq. Tariq, can you unmic yourself? Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. So
do you want to introduce yourself?
I am Tariq Murad. I am the community podcaster for Heston West, and I was privileged to interview Angela about Southall and what she does. It was really inspiring to, you know, to hear her story, and some of it was upset, like sad. Some of it was interesting to listen to. So I interviewed a lot of people. At the moment, I'm on episode 61 with all my podcasts. And it's, you know, just really inspiring to hear people's stories. It's just a nice thing to do for the community.
Tariq, can I ask you, why did you start the podcast?
Why did I start? It's because, like, not all of you know this, but only a few of you. I've been stuck in down, not doing anything indoors, just trapped in my flat for a very long time, can't go out because of the restrictions and stuff like that. So I've decided to put my hobby was a set up a podcast ever since I was young, and it's so I set up this project, and it just changed my life really completely. I can't believe like I first was a shy person, and then I ended up doing this.
Amazing. Why are you so passionate about community work?
Because when I was really young, this is a personal experience. I used to walk, but then I fell over, and then I wanted to prove to people, because a lot of people made fun of me because of my disability. I wanted to prove to people that disability people can do great things, not just, they can't do anything like some people think, but they can do great things. So this is why I set up this project, the main reason.
Yeah, thank you, Tarek. You're absolutely amazing. And what Tarek would like to do, and it's really born out of the conversation he had with me, he'd like to do a group podcast, and we need people from Southall to participate and tell Tarek your life stories. And he's so engaging. He asks the right questions. I can't think of the questions, but Tarek can. And it really is about putting Southall on the map and amplifying our voices. So what I would like you to do, and we'll put this in the chat box, Tarek's email, if you contact Tarek, if you're interested, and then we can see about setting up a date that is suitable for the majority who want to take part. So thank you, Tarek. Really appreciate your contribution tonight. So I'm going to put your email in the chat box, and your brief biography and your link to your YouTube channel, so people might want to actually view some of your very invigorating and interesting podcasts. So thank you for coming along tonight. So Chair, I'm going to hand back to you now.
Thank you, Angela. And Tarek, we will let the sun come out and we will work together. We will do plenty of work together, but very kind of you to take time out. Thank you very much. The subject I thought today is how filthy Southall is. The other day, I was standing outside my front door on Beaconsfield Road, and we actually saw two massive rats running underneath the vehicles. So this is, I mean, what are we paying our rates for, our council tax? Why has Southall been let down so badly by London Borough of Ealing? Now, this evening, we've got a few councillors with us. Is it the lack that the councillors don't care about the residents in Southall? What is the problem? I mean, Councillor Dare, would you please like to answer that? Sophie and Councillor Dare, please. Why is Southall so filthy? Thank you.
If you raise your hand, Councillor, and then I can unmute you. Can't see.
He's the handsome one, the tall, handsome one.
Is that Raj? I'm trying to find him on my screen. Got Councillor Mason, Councillor Chauhan, Councillor Dadwell. I don't think he's here.
Right. Okay. So, Councillor Mason, or shall I say, the leader of the council, is Councillor Mason with us?
Yep, I'm just unmuting him.
I'm here, Joe.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
On becoming the leader of Ealing Council.
Thank you.
We have seen the short films that you've made. I think it's a move in the right direction. And the question that I was coming out with, I thought Councillor Dear was with us. Why is Southall so dirty? I mean, rats on the streets, 7 o'clock in the evening, you're standing outside speaking to somebody and you see rats going underneath the vehicles. We really got to work hard to try to get this cleaned up. Now, I understand that there's another private company or a council company that goes around driving these vans. And my humble request, I was discussing it with some residents, the best way forward is if you could make sure, please, that they contact us, and we will start street by street. We will start by street by street. We will actually take the time out, knock on the doors, tell the people the night before that they can put their rubbish outside and the vans will come and pick it up. What are your thoughts, Councillor Mason?
Yes, so part of the reason that we brought the waste contract back in-house a few years ago into sort of greener Ealing was so that we could get a better control of the service. Part of the challenge that you've got with public services when they end up going out to private contractors is that you end up getting sort of less control over the quality of what they deliver. And we actually invested a significant amount of money into sort of bringing it back in-house to sort of ensure that we're paying sort of the workers sort of on those lorries the right pay and pensions, so that we could get a bit more control of the quality. Now, there has been some intensive work in Southall, particularly around sort of Southall Green and Southall Broadway over the last sort of year and a half. And I'd be really interested to hear if, Joe, if it's not paying if it's not paying out in terms of what it's supposed to achieve. There are a few challenges, particularly on sort of like commercial locations, where, for example, commercial waste that gets put out pretty much every day and is collected by commercial waste contractors can often attract fly tipping from people, for example, who live above shops who might not necessarily know when sort of bin day is supposed to be. But equally, what we also sort of are looking at the moment is particularly food waste collection in flatted developments and in flats to make sure that we're providing that service. Because actually what we find is if you've got food waste in black bin bags that sort of being left out from sort of flats and stuff above shops, then sort of it can sort of encourage rats and it can encourage foxes, and that's something that we need to absolutely clamp down on. It's partly, this is about the public message. It's about sort of everybody taking ownership over the state of the streets. And sort of what's been really interesting to see sort of during lockdown is Lagercan, who I'm sure some of you will know, who've done a load of work as sort of community volunteers to go out sort of litter picking in parks and open spaces. But we will continue to keep on trying to keep on top of things like fly tipping. And reporting fly tipping as much as it is reporting when sort of waste is left out is also really important, because sort of we can't be there every day of the week. We can't be there sort of all the time, and sort of we need the community to help us be our eyes and ears. And where we have had significant circumstances in the past where we've been able to sort of catch little outs and fly tippers, we'll prosecute them and we'll take them to court for sort of doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing and sort of ruining the environment. And we'll keep on doing that in the future too. But really keen to sort of understand and hear feedback if it's not working, because we need to redouble our efforts.
But Councillor, this was more in having a cleanup. If you walk down the streets where I live and you see what's in the front gardens, and you got to remember, a lot of these properties are rented. So I thought, wouldn't it be best that if we done a street by street, they could put their rubbish out. We've done this many years ago when I was a teenager. There used to be a councillor in Southall. We nicknamed him Mr. Clean, but he did do a fabulous job. He used to actually get skips. And at the weekends, we used to go in the alleyways, get all the rubbish and fill these skips up. I thought the vans that I'm talking about are the vans that drive around just picking the bags. If we could ask them to put 2-3 vehicles, I mean, we can get Southall done, or well, the Broadway side, in a couple of weeks. But it's having the initiative.
Part of the challenge that we've got.
Thought.
So part of the challenge that you've got on front gardens, particularly, is if it's on private property, then actually it takes us an awful lot of effort to sort of serve notices onto properties to sort of get them to put it right. So we don't have, we can't tell somebody to do something with their private property in that way. But take the point, and Joe, we have done it in the past, in the last sort of in the last 2 years where we've sort of had a particular focus in like, you know, Southall Green or Southall Broadway. I think we did some further up the road as well, where we did have vans going around doing precisely that, which is sort of picking up stuff that shouldn't be there. You know, and if we think that we need to do it, you know, again, maybe we look at sort of a, you know, Southall spring clean. But
would you give us 1 month amnesty where people can just put the rubbish outside their front door, outside their boundary basically, and nobody will take pictures, and they'll come and take the fridges and the mattresses, etc., etc. That's what we need in Southall.
You want a white fridge amnesty in Southall? I mean, I think we'll be swimming in white fridges.
Everything that they just put it in the front, and the van comes and lifts it up and does a good job.
Yeah.
Then we're getting something for our money, value for money, basically.
So we do have bulk waste collection, right? So
I know,
you can
but
order
you've got to
bulk
pay
waste
for it.
collection, but you've got to pay for it, right? Because ultimately somebody's going to have to pay for where that waste goes. So for every bit of waste that goes onto the back of a van, if you can't recycle it and you can't reuse it, it ends up going in landfill, and the landfill costs money. And what we really need to try and look at doing is sort of rapidly reducing the amount of waste that we produce as a community and as a country, right? Because actually, if we keep on chucking out mattresses every time a tenancy changes, or we keep on chucking out a fridge onto the you know, the front garden rather than finding a way of sort of repairing it, then we're always forever going to be filling up landfill. So that's part of the, you know, that's sort of the big picture as well in terms of what we're trying to do. But, you know, I can't promise you an amnesty right now on the phone, but, you know, let's have a conversation about what we might be able to do.
I will
write
to
me
you about that.
Please.
Any other questions, Sophia, please? Anybody got their hands up?
Yeah, so we've got Jan Griffiths first, and then we've got Shelley Chow next. So I'll just unmute Jan, and then I'll unmute Shelley.
Good evening, everyone. My answer is to Councillor Mason. Just a bit of feedback on the services with collecting rubbish and everything. I'll give you my experience of the garden rubbish in the last month. I paid for my garden rubbish back in March when I got the invoice. First week of April, my garden rubbish wasn't collected, so I rang up, as the council says, on the Tuesday morning to report it by 1 o'clock. My garden rubbish hadn't been collected. The whole road hadn't been collected, plus another road next to mine, their garden rubbish hadn't been collected. Was assured by the lovely lady at the offices that it would be collected on Wednesday by 5 o'clock. Come Wednesday, wasn't collected. So I rang up on Thursday, reported that it hadn't been collected. The lady said to me, "Oh, they're saying here it was cleared." I said, "Well, I can assure you my garden rubbish is still in my front garden." Anyway, it got collected on the Friday, so that was all well and good. The following Monday, when it was supposed to be collected, guess what? It wasn't collected again. The whole road was missed out again. Same with my friend in Brent Road. She got in contact with them, and it seemed that her name wasn't down as one of the ones that had paid, because I think Ealing Council, in their wisdom, decided because so many people wanted to pay for their garden rubbish, the council couldn't cope with all the money being taken by the 1st of April. So a lot of people in this area didn't have their rubbish collected because, as far as Ealing was concerned, they hadn't paid for it. I paid for mine by debit card in March. So again, my rubbish wasn't collected on the Monday. So on the Tuesday, I rang up again, reported it. By Wednesday evening, it hadn't been collected again. So I got in contact with the council again on Thursday. And the lovely lady there again said to me, "Oh yeah, they came down your road at 10:30 in the morning." I said, "No, they didn't, because I was working in the front garden all morning on that day." So my question is, why wasn't the garden rubbish being collected, and why and who at Ealing Council is putting down that they are clearing it when customers are complaining and it's not being collected? Now, I have to pay for this service. I don't work. I live on my own. I have a disability. I haven't got the time to keep going to Southall Tip or Ealing Tip to get rid of my garden rubbish when I'm paying for it. So I'd like to know what's happening with the services in this area at the moment with the garden rubbish.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah. I mean, I can certainly look into the specific circumstance, right? I mean, it shouldn't be happening, like baseline, right? It shouldn't happen. If you're paying for it and we've got dates and windows that it should be being collected, it should be being collected. And, you know, I'm sorry that it was late. do email me. You know, I can certainly take the details. We can very much look into it. You know, I don't want to give you the cop out that sort of, you know, but we are in COVID, and you know, there are limitations in terms of staff. There are limitations in terms of what we're able to do. But you know, we always want to stay on top of this stuff because you've got to get the basics right. So if you're experiencing when things aren't happening, like I want to know about it, I want to hear about it, and we can see if we can sort of nip it in the bud quite quickly. But you know, I wouldn't sort of be able to sort of comment on or tell you the answers on who did what without sort of like looking into the specific circumstances.
Okay. Well, it was collected. I mean, luckily it was collected this week, as it was supposed to. But what was more concerning is the fact that why is it being noted on your computer that they did come and collect it when they blatantly didn't? You know, and it's making us residents feel as though we are lying. And if I've got a 91-year-old neighbour that pays for his garden rubbish. You know, he can't keep taking it in and out every day. You know, at the end of the day, I mean, this thing about, because I spoke to the revenue collections, and the guy there, I think I've forgotten his name, Stephen McCarthy, I think his name was. He said, you know, they were insured by Ealing that if they took the money in the 1st of April on some people, 1st of May on some people, it wouldn't have a disruption to the collection. So, okay, it's sorted now, all well and good, but what the procedures in place? It didn't work. How many other people in this area that have paid good money didn't get the service for nearly a month because of the shortcomings of somebody at the council again? I mean, I'm quite forceful. I will ring up and I will chase it through. But there's a lot of people in this area, like Angela says, there's a lot of people in this area that don't speak English, don't have the confidence to ring up, don't know who to complain to. It's just, it does need to be looked into, please, Mr. Mason.
Well done, Jan. Sufyan, who's next?
Oh, sorry about that. It's Shelley. And after Shelley, no one's got their hand raised as of yet.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much, Sufyan. Thank you, Chair. First of all, may I offer my congratulations as well to Councillor Mason. Certainly, we had our exchange at the last meeting, but I have to say that your presence here tonight does really enthuse me. I have to say that, you know, that at least the leader of the council being amongst just the ordinary folk of the town is very encouraging. So thank you for sparing the time. I'm sure you're very busy, obviously just taking over. If I may just address 1 or 2 points, ditto everything that Jan has said, really, and very articulately put. If I may mention 1 or 2 things though, regarding garden waste, I believe that if I'm not wrong, it's nearly doubled since the charge was introduced. And garden waste, of course, is an environmentally friendly waste. And if the council doesn't, I would encourage it so to do, obviously to sell the garden waste to the horticulturalists, because of course they can use it as manure. Why I mention that point is, coming to the rubbish issue in Southall, you will know that we used to have the tip on Gordon Road in Southall. It was a really well-used recycling centre. I used to go there more or less every week with something or the other. And so did so many of our residents. I mean, you know, we do complain that the people of Southall are not responsible, dumping things here, there and there, everywhere. But really, the Gordon Road Recycling Centre was so well used, no one would believe that Southall residents weren't responsible. They were. But the council, in its wisdom, closed that site down and built what I can only say are half shoebox apartments there. I saw them. I actually went and had a viewing, and I think the size of the rooms was less than a hotel room. So now we lost that facility. If we look abroad, e.g. Canada, the huge country that it is, it has a facility whereby every month the local authorities, they have these facilities of what you might term as skips or dumping vehicles at the end of the road, where people just go and get rid of their unwanted items. And I know that there is a cost to that, of course, to the council, but tying that in with the garden waste, is the council selling the garden waste to horticulturalists, earning money that way? Because if the townsfolk have lost the facility of the recycling centre, the local one, with a chargeable facility put in its place, I just think that there is not an equity to that policy, which in an area that is one of the most deprived, some people here are visiting food banks, some families, so expecting them to pay, is it £80, I think, for 8 items or something like that? No wonder then you have got dumping on the streets. Thank you very much, Chair.
Appreciate it. Sophie, anybody have their hand up?
Yep, so we've got Amrit, who's got his hand raised. So I'm just going to...
Come on, sir. Come on, Mr. Amrit. Let's go.
Just waiting for him to unmute.
Sorry. Good time at the same time. This is what happens when you're working nights. I'd just like to again congratulate Councillor Peter Mason for your victory. Got your letter, printed it out yesterday or last night. So I'm going to hold you to your promises that you made on this. I told members of tax that I'll be sticking it up on my wall, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Is put it up on the wall, and every morning I'm going to, read it and make sure that you're keeping your promises to us. Couple of things. First one, will you reintroduce councillors to be held accountable, and we have our quarterly meetings at Dominion Centre or somewhere, because we need to be able to speak to them. They don't reply to us. So we'd rather meet them in person. I don't know what the cost is, but it'd be really nice if we could hold them accountable and see them face to face once every 3 months, and just answer, ask some questions. I'm not sure if this is the right forum to ask this, but I was a bit surprised at some of your selections for your cabinet or leaders. One who I know you've sent an apology for attending paid for holiday by Berkeley, and I accept your apology. I think at the time a mistake was made, and you've owned up to it, and you said it's not going to happen again. Again, that's something that we will keep you to your word and make sure that in the future these things don't happen. But one of the councillors has been doing business with Berkeley Group, selling them products and making a profit. And up until now, I do still believe that they are still doing it. I would rather that councillor resigned and said, I'm more interested in my own wealth and everything else rather than my constituents who I have failed to represent over the last 4 years. And I'm actually shocked that you put her in as one of the members. Will you reconsider your decision on that? And let us have your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie.
Sorry, I'm going to cough 1 second. You don't want me coughing on an open mic. So Shelley, just to say thank you very much. One of the things I've got to do as leader now is sort of be on top of the issues of the sort of the variant of concern that's called in the press for some reason, the Indian variant. I don't think that's necessarily good, but so I can only stay till 8 o'clock because I've got to go on a briefing and sort of talk about what the next steps on this are. And you will have seen perhaps this morning that we put out a letter that we've written to the Secretary of State, Matt Hancock, basically asking for 3 things. One is surge vaccinations in communities. I mean, when we say in communities, sort of based in communities, we did do that with the vaccination bus in Grishamsumber Park Road car park a few weeks ago. We want to see if we can really rapidly scale it up. Surge testing and also self-isolation payments. So there's a big piece of work at the moment making sure that we're sort of responding to that. So I do have to go sort of 8 o'clock. In terms of sort of picking up your point about ward forums, you know, we do want to return to ward forums. The reason that ward forums haven't happened so far is that effectively the teams that operate the ward forum, the staff that sort of make them happen, Evelyn in the context of Southall, have been redeployed to COVID activity, right? They've been doing things, they've been leading our community response. Evelyn and her team were effectively responsible for the shielding program during lockdown, where effectively we had to deliver sort of hundreds of thousands of care packages and meals to sort of shielding residents. So that's why sort of it happened in the interim. But we are definitely looking to come back to ward forums. And we like also thinking about how we sort of make them both more effective, but also sort of more engaging, in the sense that one of the things that we might do as a council is always now move to sort of hybrid meetings, whereby we might have something in person when it's safe to do so, but we may always sort of involve an element of virtual meetings in there, because actually, I think, you know, we're all at home right now. Well, I'm at the office, but I think people have the ability to sort of access these conversations in a much easier way. But in terms of my cabinet picks, what I'd sort of made a commitment to sort of my group and to sort of the borough that we would have a representative cabinet that sort of looks and feels like the borough at large, and it is the most sort of diverse that we've got in terms of all levels of sort of age, gender, sexual orientation, geography. And you know, in order for me to sort of build a cabinet, I pick from people who apply. One of the things I would say, look, is, you know, I know sometimes it doesn't feel it, but we do have hard and fast rules in place at council to make sure that where people do have conflicts of interest, that sort of they're not allowed to take part in decisions where there's a financial benefit. And actually, it's a criminal offence now. So even if they did do, I could go to jail, which I would very much like to avoid. So, you know, I get sometimes the perception of conflicts of interest, but we do manage them incredibly well to sort of stop that stuff from happening. So I'd sort of like give you that assurance. You're right to hold me to my pledges. I've made pledges in terms of the first thing I did was make pledges in the context of Southall Waterside. I've also made a series of pledges today about regeneration. I don't know if you've seen those yet. I wrote to Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, earlier today and effectively asked him to revoke the Southall Opportunity Area Framework, which for those in sort of the planning world is this big document that says Southall's future is as a dormitory borough and we want to send people into central London on trains and build lots of flats. I've said we need to reassess, we need to revisit, we need to actually have a look at bringing good jobs back to Southall. We have an industrial heritage. The stuff that's being knocked down to create flats are precisely the places that people were working for generations. And I want to change that. You know, I totally get, I'll stop talking in a minute, Joe, you can shut me up whenever you like. But, you know, I totally get that. I totally get that when a politician makes pledges and when a politician makes, you know, commitments, you know, you can always doubt it and you're always going to want to see the proof of the pudding. And what I'm telling you is, I mean it, and I want you to see that pudding being eaten over the next however many months or years that the good people of Ealing sort of say that I can lead this glorious borough. But you know, those are pledges on paper, and I would hope, anticipate, and expect you hold me to them.
Well done. My question would be this, and this goes to all the councillors. Can we please have a cancellation to all the planning permission, even the applications that are sitting in the town hall, for flats in Southall to be held, stopped immediately. This is to all the councillors. No more flats to be built in Southall till we have some breathing space. Now, I don't know what information the councillors hold. I remember many years ago, I went to a council meeting on Lancaster Road. It was held in the church. And I told the councillors the plan about Southall Police Station being closed. And they all laughed and they said, oh no, Mr. Bangu, that's not true. Well, it was true. Now, speaking about the council officers, Evelyn, I was at a meeting with Southall Community Alliance. Evelyn always finds the time to spend at the meetings with Southall Community Alliance. We would also like that stopped. A lot of money, our hard-earned money, is being wasted. It's actually been thrown away. This is to all the councillors. Our money is being wasted, giving our money to these community alliances, community who's supposed to be helping the residents. Please, let's stop the funding to all these groups till we can prove that they're actually doing what it says on the blimmin' can, because for the simple fact is, a lot of people, I mean, there's a group at the moment. If anybody wants to disagree with me, now's the time, please. We went with the Guardian newspaper to the St. Anselm's Church one cold evening, about 12 o'clock at night, 11:30 maximum. And there were people sleeping outside. And I had to ask them. I only had £20 cash on me, so I gave it to the boys, £10 each. But I said, can you please tell me, why are you sitting outside when they're receiving money? £80,000, councillors, they receive from Berkeley Group. And I don't know how much money they receive from the council. And they would not, these boys would not go inside for the simple fact they do not want to read the Bible. So they're actually saying, we'll give you food and you can have a bed twice a week in St. Anne's and Park View, opposite Southall Park, providing you read the Bible. This is not right. Anybody, I'm a Sikh, anybody can come to our temples. We don't have security guards locking the door and opening the door. So I was knocking on the door and say, you know, what's going on? And they said I had to go and register in Hanwell somewhere. So please don't waste our money. We can find better ways of spending our money, because at the moment, somebody in the town hall is not, they don't know what the heck they're doing. I can give you an example. They once were giving boilers, and those boilers were actually costing the council about £3,400, £900. I had the same boiler fitted for £1,000. So please, come on. They say they spent 9 or 7 million on the Southall Boulevard. They're having a laugh. I took a chap with me who's an architect. He said, Joe, 1.5 million. Where's the rest of the money? That's what we want to know. We work hard for our money, and we don't want somebody sitting in the council helping their friends. And that is clearly what's been going on. And under your watch, Councillor Mason, I hope we can put a stop to this. And how about getting rid of 3 tiers in each department? Sack them for the moment till we have an inquiry of what's been happening in Southall, because councillors have clearly said, Mr. Bangu, the officers in the council do not listen to us. And I made this very clear. If the officers don't listen to us, what's their agenda? Are they working for the developers? Are they friends of the developers? This is what we seriously have to look at. The word I'm looking for, it seems corruption is very ripe in Ealing Council. And I think we need to put our foot down.
Joe, we've got 3 people now with their hands raised.
Carry on.
Okay, so it was Leslie Bunda first, then David Marsden, and then Shelley. So I'll unmute Leslie now.
Thank you, Sophia, and good evening, Peter. I've got 3 questions for you, Peter, which I think are quite imperative for Southall specifically, as well as other parts of Ealing. The first question is regarding why you feel you can do things better now, when previously you said when you were inside the council under the previous regime, you felt you couldn't do much, but you carried on being there and still did much. When you said eventually you wanted to come out of it, so you came out of it to enable yourself to do stuff for people, but you did nothing then anyway. So how do you feel you can do things better now? And if you believe in honest, open communication and honest, open transparency, why weren't you transparent before? That's the first question. The second question, and this also relates to Southall, is we have within Southall many lovely dinner ladies and in fact dinner men as well. Now, you were at the time, the Ealing living wage champion, yet during your watch then, these people did not receive their living wage. Now, we know the last few weeks, former leader, Mr. Bell, Councillor Bell, he agreed to ensure they would be getting a living wage. So my question for you, Peter, is, are you going to be offering compensation or back pay to them? How can people trust you as a councillor, let alone a leader, when you take on a role? In this case, you were the living wage champion, and you did not champion the living wage for people within Ealing and these people who are actually dinner ladies and dinner men. The third question, which is also quite important, and it relates to transparency. And as you know, Peter, I'm very keen on transparency. The question relates to hospitality and gifts. Now, currently, only hospitality and gifts of £100 or more are shown to the public. Will you agree and will you join forces with those of us, such as myself, campaigning to have a voluntary agreement whereby all councillors agree to disclose any hospitality or gift of £10 or more? I've already had the undertaking from your fellow leader of the opposition, Mr. Stafford, or Councillor Stafford. He seems quite amenable to it. I've also asked Councillor Malcolm. He hasn't reacted to anything to that. Can I count on you, Mr. Mason, to agree that you will ensure moving forward from the 1st of June or even the 1st of July, or even backdated 6 months or a year, that all hospitality and gifts of £10 or more are now going to be declared? And my third question, slightly related, is regarding Mick Sabias, who I believe was previously involved with housing. I've raised it several times now, but he still has not shown his declaration of interest on the Ealing Council website. And we believe he has a second property in Islington. He's also declared himself to be a landlord in Ealing, but there's no details of his declarations on the website. So again, in the interest of transparency and openness, will you actually ensure all this will be displayed? Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. So look, I don't want to sort of retry sort of the conversation that we had last time. And I sort of, I think I've sort of been on the public record now in terms of why I resigned. All the reasons I resigned are also the reasons that I stood. And they're the reasons that sort of the Labour group have now sort of given me the opportunity to lead, and that's what I intend to do. And I think I've tried to be very clear in the last sort of 2 days and beforehand about what I think we need to do differently, and what that agenda looks like. So, I'm not going to be able to do it overnight. I've been in this job now for 2 days, and I've sort of done everything from intervene in disputes on parking, enforcement officers sort of being victimised in the workplace. I've sort of had briefings on the Indian variant of of COVID. I've been sort of locked in meetings with people for whom are very involved in the low traffic neighbourhoods in central Ealing, and I've been receiving sort of tons and tons of briefings on 1,000,001 different issues. So, the proof, as I say, the proof of the pudding is going to be in the eating. And I'm not stopped. I've never stopped being sort of political, and I've never stopped wanting to sort of change the world for the better.
We do, Peter. We do.
Thanks, Leslie. You choose to do that in a very different way than I choose to do that, Leslie. I think it's fair to say, but I'm not going to stop because I think.
And I'm not going to stop you either, Peter. So we're both not going to stop, are we?
So in terms of the living wage, so I was the cabinet member for skills and employment between 2016. And one of the things when I was a member of that cabinet was to initiate something called a social value policy. What tends to happen when councils go to contract and buy stuff from the open market is that it usually follows a sort of a procurement process that involves both quality and quantity and how it assesses what it buys. And what we've been able to do since 2016 is to use a concept called social value. And what it is basically a menu of stuff that allows us to ask contractors to do much better. So that it isn't just simply a question of how much they pay, or how much we have to pay them to deliver the service, but also sort of making it a menu of options. And when I was the cabinet member, I instituted that social value policy that had within it paying the London living wage as a key criteria for contracts. And from that point onwards, that was an expectation in all those contracts. London living wage has been as important to me in terms of what I've set out for the future direction of the administration as it is, full stop. Now, I don't know yet, having done this job for 2 days, the precise details of why the London living wage wasn't a day one guarantee of the school's contract. I have been able to get a bit more information about how the contract is formulated, who actually pays for it, what the governance arrangements of it are, and sort of I'm working on it.
But why did you check this 2 years ago, Peter? You were the living wage champion, okay? Now, whenever you take on a position or a title, okay, you are meant to be the ambassador for that, okay? So how can people trust you to be the leader of Ealing when, let alone when you were a living wage champion, you weren't actually championing the workers to get the money?
Well, I don't want to sort of make this into a back and forth, Leslie, because I think, right. I've got, so I'm committed to London living wage, right? London living wage from 2018 onwards, when we instituted that policy, should be in all contracts. I do not know at this stage why that was not in that particular contract.
But you were made aware of this at least 6 months
Leslie,
ago. You were made aware of this.
Yeah, Leslie, I'm not going to do it.
You were aware of this. People contacted you, Peter, about this, and you didn't chase it up.
And Leslie, I have made representations. So
when was the first time, Peter?
So when I was contacted by the schools campaign, I was able to confirm to them.
When was that? But Michael, who ran the campaign, you ignored him.
No, categorically, Leslie. I'm not going to do it back and forth. Categorically, okay. I'd made representations.
Okay, it's your word against Michael's. Okay, but
I'd made representations within the council before even Michael had reached out to me and before I'd reached out to him. When I did speak to Michael, I was able to confirm to him that I had made representations.
Okay, can you provide that in openness and honesty then? Can you please provide that documentation and share it with Michael and share with everyone else?
So Michael and I have been in discussion, right? Michael, it is a relationship between me and Michael, right? Leslie, you're not getting in the way of my relationship with Michael in terms of progressing this issue.
I'm not going to, Peter, okay? But the fact of the matter is, okay, it's about openness, okay? And you haven't been very open.
The fact of the matter is, I have been open, and I've been open directly with Michael. We've had direct representations and direct correspondence, and I'm progressing this issue. If you wish to continue to allege that it's not transparent and a relationship doesn't exist, by all means, Leslie, go ahead. Go ahead. The reality of the situation is very different to the one that you want to present. So in terms of the third question,
hospitality and expenses.
Hospitality. Yeah. So one of the things that I did when I was the cabinet member before I stood down was to take something called the Transparency International report that had looked at the transparency of planning decisions. Now, I'd initiated a review. The review took place when I was not a member of the cabinet. But one of the things that I've committed to today is a transparent register of all meetings, not even just ones where, because there's a difference, right? If I meet with a developer and he doesn't buy me a cup of tea, then you're never going to know about it. But if he buys me a cup of tea, fair enough, right? But I put in a register that will effectively record all engagement between developers and councillors, regardless of whatever happens. I don't want to put it down to a gentle person's agreement to get transparency. Let's review the whole thing. Review the whole thing. Let's put a review on the councillor's code of conduct, and let's find the right number and
okay.
Let's do it.
Will you agree then to retrospectively do it, say 6 months back or a year back from now?
I need to look into it. I mean, you know, we need to work out the logistics of asking everybody to sort of go back a year and check all of their receipts and every one of their meetings. But you know, as I said, I've set out right from day one that we're going to be open, we're going to be transparent, and we're going to be inclusive. And that means we're going to have to make some changes.
Okay, and this is definitely not propaganda, Peter, is it?
You can call it propaganda if you want, Leslie. You know, you're an opposing political party, and you've got a political agenda. I'm the leader of a political party. I'm the leader of a political party too, Leslie. And I'm going to say things in public, and it's going to be
you've been using propaganda,
people,
and you've been advertising, looking to do propaganda. Well, you know that, Peter.
If you want to trawl my Facebook, Leslie, over the last 12 years to find remarks that I've made, you know, by all means.
Do you apologise for the remarks?
I think you've taken an awful lot of them out of context.
Do you apologise? What do you apologise for the comments about Southall and people who speak Punjabi?
Leslie,
you've taken them out. You've taken them out of context completely, Leslie. If you actually knew the situation,
please, Leslie, I appreciate what you're doing, but let's save it for the election, please, if you don't mind, with all respect.
Okay.
To all parties. David, is it David Marsden next, Sufyan?
I've got 5 minutes. I'm so sorry about not going 5.
Just a quick one. David Marsden, is it, Sufyan?
Okay. So Peter, why didn't you help me with the clean air?
Good question.
So what I've set out from day one of the new administration is the menu of things that we're going to try and do to break the situation. We are in a bad situation, and I know that the community don't trust the council, and quite frankly, you don't trust me right now to be able to come up with the solutions. But what I've said in the letter, and I've said to Cash, and I will commit to it, and you will hold me accountable for it, is ensuring that we get the independent air quality monitoring put in place so that you can have confidence that the data that's coming out of Atkins is actually accurate. I know that you do not feel confident that the data is accurate. And I know that you will continue to doubt every public health and every environmental agency report that has used that data. So I'm determined to make sure that we've got independent air quality monitoring in place. And I'm going to go further than the tender that's currently out there just for 2 years to be able to.
Councillor Mason, sorry to interrupt you. Can you use simpler language for the child?
Yeah.
You won't understand.
The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to make sure that when people make complaints about air quality and noise and smells, that somebody's there to actually witness it, right? So that we can use that information to, when we get to the level that we need to issue a statutory notice, an enforcement notice, a letter, an action to Berkeley to tell them to stop what they're doing. What we're also going to do is a whole range of things to make sure that we put clear blue water, clear distance between Berkeley as a developer and the interests of the community, right? I know that people feel like that we've not been listening, but we're listening now. We're listening from day one of the new administration, from the new team, and we're going to work, I hope, with the community to get this done.
Appreciate it. Quick one, anybody else, Sufyan? One last question before we let the leader go.
Yes, is it Nita? She had her hand raised.
Thank you.
Residents on Carr Road in Southall, and we have had so many problems trying to get Ealing to represent us in the event of HS2 and SCS. We can't even get Ealing Council to attend the meeting to answer our questions. We're having constant noise at the back of our properties. Our houses are shaking, and they can't even put a vibration meter on. And for us, it's frustrating. Come on, represent us and attend the meetings. Every other borough is there except Ealing.
So
Thank you.
I'm really happy to look into it. You know, as I say, this is.
Hello?
I'll look into this.
I think it's his Wi-Fi. I mean, it's
Around, but you know.
Sorry, I didn't hear the answer.
Can you hear me? I think the
I can
councillor.
hear you.
Thank
I
you.
can hear you.
Thank you. Welcome to our meeting. I think the councillor is saying that he will look into it if you send him an email, I believe. That's what I
Okay,
think I heard.
so we've been talking with Miriam Rice and James Murray. We've asked certain questions that we're expecting James Murray to go and address with the Transport Minister. We've had nothing back. They can't even be bothered to attend our meetings with SCS and HS2. And this has been going on since last year, September. And some of these residents have lived in this area for 50, 60 years. And they're old people, they don't have access to emails or Zoom or anything. And the way that I've managed it is by putting chairs out in my garden for these 80-year-olds to come and sit out in the freezing cold to pass their views. And it's appalling. It really, I'm shocked.
How long has this been going on?
It started last year, October, and I felt, I mean, you sleep in bed at 8 o'clock in the morning and the whole house vibrates from 7:30, 8 o'clock until 3, 4 o'clock. We've asked them to put vibration meters on and they're saying that they can't do it. We got in touch with we managed to get someone from Ealing Council, Suri from Pollution and Vibration Department, and he came for one meeting and he won't come to any other meetings.
You need to offer him a cup of tea or a cup of coffee.
Oh, I tried. I really did try. I even offered to do dinner for him.
You didn't scare him off, did you?
I think I might have done.
Less than £10. Well, so less than £10 though. So I dropped off the call. My internet connection went down, so I think you might have missed. Basically, I don't know about the situation yet. I'm very happy to look into it. Really happy to look into it.
Yes, please.
I'm getting a lot of emails at the moment. I have to say, really loads because of low traffic neighbourhoods and everything else. But send me something. It's peter.mason@ealing.gov.uk.
Okay.
Really happy to look into it, and we'll pick it up. We'll pick it up after this call. Is that all right?
Yes, that's perfect, because what I will do is I'll send you, I've actually run a spreadsheet with all the complaints that the residents have done and all the replies that we've had from the regular meetings. We're trying to get them to have regular meetings with us. Every other borough's managed to be on the meetings, but Ealing just doesn't want to participate, and we can't understand as residents why not.
I could definitely look into it.
Okay, so it's
Mason, MASON, @ealing.gov.uk. The same goes for everybody else as well.
Okay. You'll be sorry you gave me the email address.
I won't, trust me. Joe, I'm afraid I've got to go.
No, appreciate your time. Many thanks.
Thank you
for
very
having me.
much.
Thank you for listening to me, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sufyan?
Yeah.
What happened to Councillor Dinser today? What happened to Councillor Dinser? Councillor Anand?
I mean, you know what they're like. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. They did agree to meet us. We held a meeting with the councillors, didn't we, as cash, and most of the councillors did agree that they would attend. All the councillors, I can't exactly remember who was there, but pretty much all the councillors who were there said they will attend. If we send them the link, we did send out the link. As you see, there are councillors here, like Councillor Chauhan, I can see on my screen, a few other councillors as well. as you just saw, Councillor Mason was here as well. So, I mean, that's why we're holding these meetings ourselves, because we leave it down to them, we don't get results. And that's
I mean, perhaps for the other councillors who've joined us today, perhaps they like to answer a few of our questions. Which councillor, who's this from? Dadwell said he has to go. Is there anybody else around from Dormers Wells, Lady Margaret Ward?
Dadwell said he can speak quickly. Councillor Dadwell, I'll just unmute you.
Councillor Dadwell, if you can hear me, can we please speak to the rest of the councillors? We're not worried which ward they belong to. I believe that they should attend our meeting on the 20th of every month, where people can come and show or ask what they, or tell us what their problems are. For the simple fact is, if councillors are saying because of COVID-19 we can't meet anybody, fine, I agree with that. But that doesn't mean that we cannot get together on a computer once a month and people can, you can answer some of the questions that people have. What do you think about that, Councillor?
Chair, I think what you have set up here is an amazing idea. I think it's the way forward to go. I think obviously with social distancing and lockdown is what it's been, I think this is the way forward to go. And I think everyone can be comfortable in this. I can't speak for all the other councillors, but Councillor Teensah has sent his apologies. I did type it in the messages earlier on. Unfortunately, his daughter's in hospital, so he couldn't make it.
Sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that.
Apart from that, I'm not sure. Like I said, I can't speak about any of the others. As I said, I do have to go as well, unfortunately. Having said that, I'm really glad that we're having these talks. And I agree these should happen more often. And if you're suggesting once a month, I'm completely on board with that, Chair.
No, I appreciate your time, Councillor. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Councillor Chauhan, can you hear me?
I'm trying to find her. Councillor Chauhan, I'll just unmute you so you can discuss.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Yep, I can hear you, Joe.
Good evening. How are you finding? How are people contacting you? Is it via email?
I've been throughout the pandemic. I've got lots of phone calls, text messages, WhatsApps, emails. I've been participating online also where possible. So the variety. I've sort of used as many and all mediums as possible.
Councillor, do you think there's going to be change? I mean, obviously, Councillor Peter Mason is saying that he wants to see change, but like the discussion we had last month, if a High Court judge is saying the London Borough of institutionally racist, then obviously it's got to be the officers or the big wigs in Ealing Council that dislike us in Southall. What do you think? You've been a councillor now for a few years. What have you noticed?
Well, I think, I'm a resident in Southall first and foremost before being a councillor. And I would agree that that Southall does experience structural inequalities. I think this is not a debatable issue. We have high levels of socioeconomic deprivation. We have, we can list the problems that we have as long as it'll run longer than my arm. And I don't think those problems can be solved overnight. That was a reason why I stood for election in the first place, was to try and at least begin to voice some of the issues that people are experiencing and try and be that voice within the council and within all available spaces. And I think this is a long battle that everybody has to fight together, basically, I would say. I don't think it's going to change overnight. And I think that's the problem with structural racism. It's embedded in every institution, within personal relationships as well. And it requires each person in every single position of power to evaluate themselves and the way they carry themselves. So You know, this is, for me, this is why I think, you know, not to be on the same drum as everybody else, but why these sort of forums are so important, and we have open discussion between residents and elected officials, right? I don't consider myself any more important than anybody else here. I'm one of you all, and you know, it's part of creating this sort of space where we can talk to each other and share these experiences that we have, and then I can try and elevate that as far up as possible within my means.
Why do you think, councillor, that one councillor in Southall has been on the cabinet for about 18 years? What's so special about Councillor Nunn?
I'm afraid I can't comment on that, Joe. I'm not in the cabinet, and
What
I'm not the leader,
experience?
so we should...
What experience do you think that she has? That
Again,
she
I
needs to be.
can't comment.
No, I'm just asking a simple question. What experience do you think that she has, that she's been in cabinet for the last 18 odd years? I find that quite shocking, actually.
Yeah, you'll have to ask Peter about his choices for cabinet, I'm afraid. So this is not something that I have input in. I couldn't tell you. I mean, Councillor Anand has been a councillor for many years. Perhaps that's the experience that he chose her, but you know, I'm not here to explain Peter's reasons for his choices. So you'll have to ask him directly.
So poor Councillor Dinster only had 6 months in the cabinet.
Actually, that is correct. Yes, I'm not sure I don't even know if it's 6 months. I haven't counted, so I can't remember.
I'm sure that's what he said last month. Right. Thank you, Councillor. Sufyan.
Yep.
Is it? I can't read the name on my system. Read the message for next, please. Is it Nina? Is it Nina?
I can't pronounce the name, but yeah, it
looks like Nina. I'm sorry. Put them on, please.
Yep, I will do.
We'll ask the name as well, so we get it right.
Yes. Hi. Sorry, it's Ninthe.
Ninten, beg
Yes.
your pardon. Sorry.
That's fine. No problem. I also go by the name of Yasmin. I'm sorry. So I had to switch computers. So I've changed the names. But I'm just wanted to kind of say that I am a resident of Southall. I've been obviously smelling these lovely smell around us. I have been in contact with one of the councillors who hasn't actually replied back, and I'm gutted to see that we have a new councillor now, which makes me even more frustrated. But what I am very, very upset about is the fact that people or councillors or people that are within the council, and especially councillors, people that are in parties, can make promises, can make statements, and they are basically not challenged. And reason why I'm here tonight is I'm very gutted that I couldn't speak to Mr. Mason because my children were awake and they were running, so I couldn't speak. But I really, and I know that he said that he made some promises now and that he will definitely follow this up. But I want to say to the councillors that are here today that I'm going to be not involved with cash at the moment because I knew about them, but I haven't had the time to kind of get myself involved. But I'm going to be one of those people that are definitely going to be following things up with you and making sure that Mr. Mason will definitely make sure that he keeps his promises. And what I also want from him and other councillors are not just to only kind of sweet talk us and say that you're going to do something about the issues that we are going through and that you understand because you also live in the area, but we want you to come with dates. We want you to come with solid answers to our solutions. And one of those things are basically making sure that you give us the exact dates of when you are going to do something about our issues. We're not going to sit back anymore and listen to how you tell us what you're going to do next, but we want time. We want proper time, and we want things to be followed up, please.
Thank you for that. How long have you lived in the Waterside estate, if we call it the Waterside or the Green Quarter?
I've been living here 2 years, and can I also say I've also contacted the Environment Services, the number that that is available for us to call, And I've contacted many times telling them about the smell. I've never had a call back from these people, again, which is something that really frustrates me. I have kids here, I have other things that I need to do. I don't want to keep on following you up and making sure that you do your job. So I've been told, I've been kind of, digging into this further. And I have a friend of mine who is a legal advisor, and I am willing to make this us featuring the state, meaning Boris Johnson, because this is out of order. Nobody is doing anything about it. Everybody is, as I said again, making promises, and they don't make sure that these promises are kept. There are people here that cannot speak for themselves. This might be because they can't speak the language properly, or they don't know where to go to. And it saddens me that people are basically ignored, I'd say, ignored. And it's not going to continue.
How many times do you
Sorry, you broke off. I couldn't.
think you rang the council? Just roughly.
Well, I've sent an email once that I haven't had.
How many times do you think you rang the council?
I've contacted 3 times, and I was able to. I was provided with the same reference number, because obviously that case was not closed, so I was given the same reference number, and I haven't had a call back, not once a call back. So not only, as I said, nothing is being done, and it really, really frustrates me, because it's the councillors, it's the people that work within the council, it's this environmental team, it's this promises that being said that there's going to be an independent party doing the investigation from August 2020, and it has not been done. I just don't understand. I really don't understand why people keep voting for these people. I really just don't understand. Even having Peter Mason, I just don't understand what the point is of voting for people in that making such promises to people, giving people hopes, and not doing anything about it.
Can I please add something to that?
Yes, please.
I've lived in Southall for 55 years. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfectly.
Your flats are at the rear of my garden.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, my family, my parents, before us, our parents have been voting Labour locally for the last 40, 50 years. And do you know what our councillors were telling people?
Mm-hmm.
Our Asian community, they love to hear gossip. They were saying that we're just troublemakers. All our group, which is CASH, Clean Air for Southall Hayes, they were going around telling people that we're just troublemakers, there is no problem. So this is our community. These are the elected councillors. And this is how cronyism works, okay? The big boys, they run the council, okay? And they then dictate to our councillors. Some of our councillors are very nice and they're sincere. And they actually tell us that we go to the council, we tell the officers, this is not right for Southall, and they still continue on. So in my mind, that leaves that there's a hidden agenda going on, and people are not listening to our voices, and certainly they're not listening to our councillors, because we have 15 councillors in Southall. I'm a member of the Labour Party, unfortunately, and I believe there are 2 groups within that Labour group. We have a local radio station which is biased towards us. They say we can go on the radio station, but we can't use anybody's name or talk about the Labour Party. So welcome to Southall.
Yeah.
But the good news is there is going to be a serious investigation. We've got a lawyer on the case, a good QC, so don't worry. You speak to all your residents, and we'll let the sun come out. We'll all get together and we'll go forward, okay? We've been doing forms for the health of the residents in Southall, which again, I feel ashamed. That is the duty of our elected councillors, to go and listen to the problems that the residents are facing. And unfortunately, and my group, Clean Air for Southall Hayes, knows this. we've lost so many lives.
Yeah.
Which means that London Borough of Ealing, they have blood on their hands. And they're not going to get away with this, okay? The court case is going to be very strong, and they can call us whatever they like. It doesn't matter. Teacher used to say, sticks and stones can break your bones, but words shouldn't harm you, okay? But no, stay with us. I mean, you know, we have this meeting on the 20th of each month, speak to other residents, but it just goes to show, you know, that we're not making this up. So I do feel what you're going through, but please remember, I've been fighting this since late 2015, and I'm getting older. And by now we should have had the community standing with us. We should have had our religious leaders with us. And certainly our councillors should have stood with us against Ealing Council and also against Berkeley Group. But this clearly hasn't happened. So who's next, Sufyan? Thank you.
Yeah, just want to add one thing about that. So I went to the site.
I'll be back in a minute. Carry on.
A good few months ago to hand out some leaflets regarding the Odour Collect app, and I was approached by a resident. I never got his name. And he stopped me and he goes, "Do I work for the developer?" And no, I don't. I'm obviously a volunteer for Cleaner for Southall and Hayes. So I explained to them who I was, and they said, "We need help." And I said to them, "Is there anything I can do?" He goes, "I've got 2 young children and we can't breathe at night." And that really hit a nerve with me, because I live about 1.5 miles away from the site and I experienced the same thing. And with 2 young kids, to not breathe at such a young age, and we know of instances where like a little girl was sleeping in an oxygen tank not too far down the road from the site, as which appears in the Guardian film. So I said to them, "Look, I will take your number, and I will." I did do an investigation for them. I did ring the council, and I did speak to the council and say, "Look, residents are complaining," but they didn't want to come forward because they're scared to lose their house. That's why they don't come forward. Now, obviously, that was just one experience with me, which really hit a nerve, because if they are trying to speak out, but then they're silenced because they might lose their house, they need a roof over their head. But if they're being silenced, what can they do? But anyway, Councillor Chauhan, you've got your hand raised, and Angela, you've got your hand raised.
Hi, yeah, thanks. I just wanted to first thank Ninthe, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, for your contribution. And I wanted to say, you know, I've put my email address in the chat box. I haven't heard from you before, but you're very welcome to contact me, and I can guarantee you will get a response. I think that's one thing most people on this call can attest to. I will get back to you, and I will follow up on things. I do that without being prompted. You know, I messaged Angela just last week, I think it was, picking up on Jan's complaint on the Facebook site. This is something, you know, I'm monitoring that Facebook site regularly without any prompt from anybody, because I'm genuinely concerned, and have been genuinely concerned since day one of being a councillor in Southall Broadway ward, about the experiences that everybody here and everybody living on the boundary and further have experienced as a result of the noxious sort of gases and smells coming from the site. So please do email me. I would be really grateful if you could send me the 3, or if it was 1 reference number that you got, so I can follow that up with the team who deal with complaints at the council, because I have, you know, brought up the issue of why people are reluctant to complain, the fact that people have been on the telephone for 45 minutes allegedly at a time, and I've received rebuttals from officers saying that they've done dry run tests and they haven't had the same experience. So if I can get a reference number from you, and that's a hard bit of evidence to say that you got no response back, that will be really helpful. And all I can say is, in the eventuality that you don't hear back, please call me. Please send me a text message, a WhatsApp, an email. I will pick it up and I will get in touch with the council officers as soon as possible, as soon as I am able to pick it up and respond, and follow this up. And that is, I share your frustration a lot at the issue of, you know, councillors say, we'll get back to you, we'll get back to you. I try my very best to give dates, and I try to push officers to give me dates too, because I share your frustration when I don't get responses back. And I have to chase it up. You know, it's not easy, it's not without its complications and its frustrations, but that's something that I sort of commit to doing. If I get casework, I try and deliver on it. And if I can't, I at least chase up the answer to say, well, the answer is no, I can't do this. And I try really hard not to keep people hanging. So that's my sort of commitment to you. Please feel free to get in touch with me. I can also leave my number in the chat box as well. So yeah, please do pass on your details, and feel free to contact me whenever you can and whenever you want to. And that goes for everybody in the group. I would like to say I do deal with casework that is non-Southall Broadway too, so I don't just turn people away if you're not from my ward. So, you know, it's not easy to do it, but please do. That's what I'm here for.
No, that's excellent. Do we, Councillor John, do we think that the mentality in Ealing Council has to be changed? If we're not blaming our politicians, I mean, I'll give you a name. Councillor Rajinder Maan actually said in a meeting in Havelock School that their thoughts were not listened to by Ealing Council officers. Is it the hierarchy in Ealing Council don't care about the people in Southall? That's a question I'm asking myself. Something is not right. If half of our councillors are on the side of Ealing Council and the other half are not, then what's going on? What is wrong with the system? What needs to be changed? That's the question I ask myself. What needs to be changed? Is it the mentality in Ealing Council that they're biased against us? Or is it lack of confidence, call it, knowledge of our local councillors who do not stand with the people of Southall? These councillors have forgotten who put them in that chair. We voted for these councillors. It's very sad. I could even go far, which I did with Mr. Sharma. I actually went this far by saying that I thought that the Asians were racist towards their own people. That's how deep I feel about this. If our voices are not being heard in London Borough of Ealing in the council, then something is not right. Where's our democracy? That's the question. Does our democracy exist?
Would you like me to answer, Joe?
Yes, thank you.
I think it's a really complicated, I mean, I don't think there's a straightforward answer to it. I think, you know, what you mentioned earlier, I think pretty much every institution is dealing with some form of structural racism and inequality. I think that's not a radical statement, or maybe that is a radical statement to say. I think you won't find a single workplace that doesn't have that either. And those are the struggles that we all have to commit to fighting. I think, I don't know that it's possible to make generalizations about like why there aren't responses. I think it's important to take a systematic approach and look at it sort of case by case. I don't think people's feelings, like you're saying, should be ignored at all, that they feel that they're not being heard. I think, you know, that's where we need to start the discussion from and say, well, what is it that we need to do differently? And I say, in my case, like I heard that from day one when I was knocking on the doors in the campaign. And, you know, that's why I've made so much effort to keep my lines of communication open with people and be transparent in the way that I conduct my sort of business. I don't even want to call it business, but let's say that I lead on casework with councillors within the council. I think that's like a fundamental step, sort of demystifying, and it's a big word, but, you know, removing the sort of the block, you know, the stuff that people don't see, opening that up for people, showing people how the institutions work, and then enabling them with that knowledge to be able to make the institutions work better for them. And I think that is, you know, I think groups like Cash, like they're fundamental to that, fundamental to pushing elected officials and institutions to work for them and to hold them to account when they're not working for them. So, I mean, offices are inundated with a lot of casework. That's also true. I think there's a lot to say. I know people don't like to hear it, but I think government cuts have a lot to do with the way that the responses that we get and, you know, the reshuffles and structures of local government. I mean, for me, I think one of the most shocking things during the pandemic was seeing that, you know, across the country, public health within, as a department, let's say, within councils had been slashed to the point where, you know, it doesn't, you know, we saw the lack and the need for it when the pandemic came. And I think, 10, 15 years of austerity has a lot to answer for that. But it is also what I said earlier, that there is every single institution in this country faces a problem of inequality, structural inequalities. And, you know, through these channels and spaces of communicating, hearing your voices, hearing what you want and what's not happening, we can start to hopefully together try and tackle that. And that's I suppose it's a mass. I can't change everything on my own. I think I realized that very early. It's very difficult to do that. But I've always felt, you know, when I come into these spaces and hearing what you all have to say, I feel galvanized in wanting to represent you even more, because there's clearly a need.
I appreciate that, Councillor.
Yeah.
Councillor, can I tell you what happened to me? I've got a neighbor. They built something that they weren't supposed to build, and we share the same architect, and they received a letter to knock down the building, or the council would charge them £26,000 to knock it down. Do you know what they told the architect? Oh, they said, give us a letter, you don't worry, we know councillors. There's another case where Councillor Nunn's name has come up. Somebody built a 6-meter extension, and they were very happy because Councillor Nunn helped them. Their 6-meter extension wasn't knocked down. Is the Labour Party councillors running a mafia in Southall? That they only work for certain people, but they don't work for the majority?
I can't comment on what other people do. I don't know what their
No, but how do you feel what I just told you?
Well, I can pretty much only talk about what I do and not what others do, because like I said, I have no way of sort of verifying what happened in that, what, you know, not to say that it didn't happen, I don't know, but I can only talk very much about me and say, you know, I definitely don't help people just because I know them. It's indiscriminate, and I try and be as fair and balanced in the way that
I met a councillor at a party. It was a Labour Party party when Sadiq Khan won the City Hall, when he won City Hall as the Mayor of London. And the councillor told me that he was on the planning committee. So the question, I said to him, are you an architect? He said, no. I said, are you a civil engineer? He says, no. I said, what the heck are you doing on the planning committee? I wouldn't let you wash my car. What's going on? This is how the local community have been let down by our politicians. I was talking to the leader of the biggest temple, 2 temples in Southall, and he didn't like what I said, but I speak my mind, as you know, councillor. And I said, we've been suffering for 5 years. You're the leader of the Sikhs. Why haven't you been standing with us? He said, Mr. Bangu, please, we discuss the problem that I have, and we can leave that. When we sit down, we will discuss that. What's going on? Who Who's in charge? That's what we want to know. Who's locally in charge, or do we have to stand ourselves? And then people like Mr. Sharma are going to say, oh, look, we lost the election. Well, if we're going to run if the councillors are going to behave the way they're behaving, then I think it's time they went on the heap, isn't it? What do you think about that, councillor? That Southall should have an independent party, new councillors,
I think it's
educated
very
councillors?
sad. I think it's very sad that people still feel so unrepresented by
the
Labour Party.
We are. No church has come to our aid. No mandir has come to our aid. No Sikh temples come. No mosque has come to help us.
And I think it's really important that what you're saying is heard. I think it's important. I think it's up to every Labour Party member, every Labour politician to hear what you're saying and to have deep internal introspection as to why that might be.
Thank you. Let me call in Sufyan. Can you put on Angela, please? Thank you.
Yeah, Joe. So we've got 4 people with their hand raised.
What
so
you got?
We've got Angela, then Teresa Mullins.
Put Angela on, then we'll take the others very quickly.
Yeah. All right then. Angela, do you wanna?
Okay. Hi everybody. I'm not going to talk for very long. I just want to congratulate Ninthe for speaking out. I know it's very difficult living in a new development, particularly if Catalyst is your housing association. We did canvass there. We spoke to individuals who are very concerned. I remember speaking to a mum, and she said her daughter has a running nose, and she spoke to Catalyst, she spoke to Ealing Council, and she spoke to the child's school, and nobody wanted to know. So thank you once again for having the courage to speak out in a public forum. My heritage is Jamaican, and I am quite, I guess, cynical in some ways, because many Jamaicans would say a comfort is a promise to a fool. What I believe in is action. Now, obviously, Peter Mason is no longer on the call. He is one of the local councillors that represents the ward that I live in. And I feel that he treats us with disdain. We invited him to meet with us on Zoom, and he totally ignored us. And it wasn't until Leslie Bunder of Ealing Independence actually had a concerted campaign on Twitter calling Peter out for his failings that Peter actually spoke out in March, more than a year after he was contacted. So we met with Peter Mason and a few of the other councillors, and he said the reason why I didn't want to meet you on Zoom is because I was worried about being recorded. And I said to him, well, ward forums are recorded, in writing, there are minutes. And I said, often after a meeting, a constituent will want to have a private word. How do you know you're not being recorded then? They could covertly record you on their mobile phone. He has actually written a letter to Cash, which was published yesterday on Twitter. We also received it to our email account. Now, unfortunately, I haven't got the time or energy from Wednesday through to Friday to dedicate to doing a reply to him. It's my working part of the week. However, I will reply, and it will be a composite reply representing the views of all Cash members. We want action, and I think Ninthe made a very good point about accountability and being held to deadlines, because we were told last July by his predecessor, Councillor Bell, that the air quality monitoring was supposed to begin in August. It didn't begin in August. We received a letter, we were told the delay was to do with the pandemic. So we held our very first Southall Matters meeting, and I think a couple of days later we got an email from Councillor Mason saying that the day before the date of the email that the air quality monitoring contract had been put out to tender, and the process is set to end on the 21st of May. Now, in Peter's letter, he says he wants to delay the process so that we can be involved. And my personal feeling is, I can't speak for other members of CASH, but I don't want to be involved. I don't want to work for nothing. I don't want to be used and exploited to make up for the council's failings. You know, I'm not going to be an unpaid consultant. At the end of the day, I'm going to be blunt. They need to get on, do their job, appoint an air quality contractor, and make the data publicly available on a platform. It frustrates me, you know, it seems to be reminiscent of David Cameron's Big Society. It's about making ordinary people pay for the excesses of the bankers. I'm an ordinary working class person, and I can't become involved to that depth. So, you know, it is a long, hard battle. Peter Mason didn't give us a chance to respond before publicising the letter, which suggests that it's a PR exercise on his part. You know, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I will respond to his letter and it will be published on our Twitter account. But I think I'm really inspired to see the number of people who've turned up tonight and holding civilised conversation and questions, you know, holding the councillors to account. There's just one more thing I want to say before I finish. Councillor Jaskrin Chauhan has been wonderful. But I have to say, in my dealings with the Labour Party, it's not the Labour Party that I knew from my youth, when you had people who seemed to really stand up for the working class and were passionate about their socialist values. I entirely agree with Joe. It seems to be like the mafia. And one particular person I've been dealing with seems to be like an enforcer and told me not to draw attention to Councillor Mason's failings. You know, who are they to tell me? We live in a democracy, and Peter Mason and the councillors need to be held accountable. And what I would say, I think really the only way forward is to have people who are passionate and committed and are not in it to gain financially, but really care about the community and to stand as independents. And I know Leslie has put his contact details in the chat box. We really need change in Southall. We can't keep voting for the same councillors who are not interested in Southall as a community. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Appreciate it, Angela. That was very good. Thank you. Sophie, and who we got next?
Yeah, so I think John was next. Is it John J. Martin? Am I pronouncing your name right? I'll just unmute you.
I think you'll find Teresa was probably ahead of me, so Teresa can go first.
All right, sorry.
That's all right. That's right.
Wait, Teresa, I need to unmute you. You're still muted, Teresa.
Apologies. Good evening. Joe, you asked a question. I'm an ex-councillor, but I was in Northfields. I dealt with untold casework, and I would go to the offices in the council. If them offices did not respond to my emails and my queries, I then took it up to the departmental head, and even including the council leader, Councillor Navajak. So he always knew what was going on. I found that was the best way, that I set a precedence when I started. And it takes a couple of months to learn the ropes, but I learned, well, if you're going to ignore me, I will take it a step further. I worked with two other brilliant, okay, I'm a Conservative, but I had two other phenomenal Conservative councillors with me in Northfields. I can't, and everybody knew, and they called us the A-team, because how well we worked together. 3 different people, 3 different personalities. So nobody was missed out anywhere along the line. And that is how councillors are to work. And if they work like that, they can get resolutions to the majority of their issues within the council. But, you know, we made an effort. Okay, there has been a long running dispute. I've listened to it for 10 years now from the residents in Southall, how they're not heard by the majority of their councillors, but I've heard that for 10 years. You also brought up the issue of the planning committee. So you're wondering, how do people land on the planning committee without any qualifications? I was on the planning committee. I have got no planning experience. Okay, that's the way it works. When councillors are elected, so, you know, we don't know councillor anywhere from any party has to put in a CV that they got a degree in this or a degree in that. Politics does not work like that. So, you know, you go along, you work with your party, and then they choose whether you can stand as a councillor. And then you are put into roles and committees. So when I was put into planning, I was horrified because this is major decisions as far as I'm concerned. But you see, I took a step further. I took myself up to the planning department with all the list of all these, you know, questions and everything to do with planning. And I sat there until they explained every one of the things I'd heard, the, you know, quotations come up in planning, so that I could fully understand them to help me make a judged decision. And when you are on the planning committee, you know, you can only consider planning considerations. You couldn't think outside the box. Well, you know, there's, you know, it's contaminated land, that's got nothing to do with it. Or, you know, where's the infrastructure, which was always my big thing. Hold on a minute here, look at Southall. Look at the overdevelopment in Southall, but where is the infrastructure? We cannot, it's not just Southall. We've also got it in Ealing Broadway. I mean, look at Acton. You know, we've got these tower blocks springing up right, left and centre. And, you know, I spent years on the health committee, which is something I am very, very much into. And like I said to them, you want to shut Ealing Hospital. Well, then I brought out all the statistics of the number of properties that had been built in the London Borough of Ealing. I broke it down to from bed sits, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedrooms to show the level of increase in population. So when you put them figures together, you cannot get rid of a hospital like Ealing. So I'm just giving you an example what councillors can do if they put their mind to it. And I've just explained to you how the planning committee works. Any councillor, you know, whoever they choose, will be said, will you go on the planning committee? And it's up to that councillor whether they go and find out how planning actually works. And I remember and the reason I've done that, I remember my first planning committee, there was this thing called Section 106. But I'd already been upstairs because I'd been told there's a thing called Section 106 to find out exactly what it was. I remember coming out of that meeting, going into the ladies' toilets. Some of the ladies from Southall who sat and voted on that committee come out, threw their papers in the bins and said to me, Councillor Mullins, what's Section 106? I said, you've just passed an application and you don't even understand the meaning of Section 106. So what I'm saying to you, it's down to individual councillors when they get elected to fully find out what the roles they're doing. And if they don't know, to make sure they go to the departments. And that's another good way of councillors getting to know who's in charge of their departments. If any of you local residents come to us with any issues, and councillors are free to walk into the council, to any department, to solve any of your issues. We're free to do that. So if it's not being done, but then, like you say, perhaps the passion's not there. So that's all I wanted to say.
Can I just add 3 quick points, please? That was very kind of you. I've been to Labour Party meetings. I've seen ladies get up, and a councillor lady get up, take the ladies into a toilet and tell them which way to vote. This is the Southall Labour Party. I'm ashamed of it, basically. My planning points, two quick ones, please, councillor. A chap owns 2 houses, he wants to knock them down and he wants to build 6 flats. He puts in the planning permission and it gets refused. 4 weeks later, he receives a letter from an English company that you've been refused planning permission. So they've said, yes, we can get you the planning permission. That's not a problem. He said, what's your fee? They said it's £35,000. It's difficult to, that chokes you, that does. Another one we've got is the building's been built. And they've actually, it's a commercial building, and they've actually told the owner that the color of the bricks is not right. And a few weeks or months later, he receives confirmation from developers that we understand you got issues there, we'd like to buy your plot. Something isn't right, something doesn't smell right, far as I'm concerned. If you come at the back of my house and you look at the flats, they're well out of order. I've got 9 flats looking upon me in my garden. That is the, they've actually got, I'm just trying to think of the word, what they're called. And they're actually looking upon my house, balconies. So isn't that out of order? How did they get that planning permission through? Something is not right. I'm serious. I smell a rat personally. We've been here far too long. We know a lot of people. We speak to people. And that's where we get our information from. No, councillor, I really do appreciate. Sufyan, who's next, please?
It would be John J. Martin and then Nitin as a. So John, if you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks very much. Really interesting meeting, and I just want to bring it back to what Joe was saying earlier. It's really, what are the ward councillors doing? I've been a resident of Norwood Green for 25 years. I've had, I didn't attend ward forum meetings for probably at least 15 of those years. But my first attendance at a meeting, I was told by a councillor to put my hand up, asked a question, and I was told to sit down, to shut up. I was then told to, in fact, get up, get out, who are you, where do you live? All of that is unacceptable. And I'd just like to know, councillor, from your end, do you believe that to be appropriate behaviour? And to make matters worse, when I then followed on a query in relation to a sale of a potential car park, which the local residents were up in arms about, and I wrote to our 3 ward councillors. It was a very simple couple of lines, just asking for their opinions on what they felt, would they support us in stopping the sale of this car park. I finally received a reply, but from this ward councillor, that put the trail of emails in that he had sent to Councillor Bell now. And it said words like, this individual is one of our constituents. He is a troublemaker. He is an individual who runs a business which is an estate agent, quite what relevance that is, and that quite frankly he shouldn't be at our meetings. And this was sent to the leader of the council. You know, how are we as individuals from whatever ward, Southall Green, Southall Broadway, Norwood Green, Lady Margaret, how are we, or how are you, I suppose, as councillors, going to put faith back in us that what we are doing is the right thing and what we believe is right for our area, but how are you as councillors going to actually adhere to it? Because are you being told from above that you've got to follow that line and ignore your residents? Or are you now, possibly come this election in what's it, a year's time, you could find that people are just fed up with it and they won't vote you back in? So how are you going to try over the next 12 months? And I agree there's been a change of leader. I have worked, and irrespective of what people think of Councillor Bell, I've worked with Councillor Bell on various matters, and I was the individual that won us the best high street in London at Pitshanger Lane, and I had to work with the council to get that sorted. So, you know, I understand what's working with the council, and for the last 8 months, I've been running the London Borough of Ealing's High Street Task Force team. But if I was to say as an individual, on a personal level and even on a business level, I have some councillor representations, which we've got a meeting tomorrow. But I know an email went out to every single councillor across the borough, looking for businesses for us to talk to that we could help, because we've been able to get some funding from the government. Very, 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 very few of them responded. And I find that extremely disappointed as a business owner in Ealing for 25 years. I've spent most of my day basically going out looking to spend some of this money to encourage businesses, to help the hospitality industries. But we need more councillors on side. And I have to say, from a Southall point of view, I've heard nothing from any one of them. So I really appreciate your sort of feedback on that.
The question I have is, what is it that you were actually offering the businesses, please, if I may ask?
I've been very instrumental with getting money out of the government, and we got an original payment of £300,000 back last year, just coming out of lockdown 2, and that was what's called the Reopening High Street Safely Fund. We've also 6 weeks ago got a further £300,000, which effectively is for welcoming back people to the high street. So things like making the high street safe, looking at the posters, looking at the banners, looking at the street markers, so that we can get those social distancing done. But to be quite honest with you, what has appalled me, and I'll be honest, I think I've got 4 councillors that attend these meetings, but not one of them, including Councillor Dinser, whose portfolio this is, or this was, who turned up to the first meeting for all of about 40 minutes. And to be fair, these meetings do go on for about 2 hours because there's quite a hefty agenda. But we get things done. He turned up to the first meeting. He never turned up to another one after. Why? What's the reason?
His heart is not in it.
What is it that stops councillors? Where is your, and please don't take this personally, Councillor Johan, because I've got to say I'm equally impressed that you're here tonight and you will answer a number of the questions. I have given my heart and soul to my high street in Pitshanger Lane. I have given my heart to my business. What I now need, and to be honest, during the pandemic, no disrespect, the 3 ward councillors for us, which are 3 Labour councillors now, I've not seen sight nor sound of them. But because we've got on with it ourselves as businesses, we've done all this. But I look around where I live, I don't see our councillors. I have no idea where they are. Why are they not doing things? Joanne, I know that we brought this up with Verinda Sharma, with our MP. I was appalled then, and I'm still appalled now, that we are not getting anywhere. And we need you to put the confidence back in those people that are voting, that they should be going out voting for you. Because at the moment, I just can't see it. There's just nothing from your side coming through. Great, there's some changes going on. We understand that, and let's see what happens above. But please show us some respect. I
think we've been taken for a ride, basically. I blame it on politics coming in from abroad. A lot of our, how can I say, I've got to use the right word here, the mature politicians are all brought up in India. So they're bringing those values over here. That's the only thing I can put it down to. But we are bringing change. Sooner or later, we are going to start our own independent party in Southall, and we will have independent councillors standing. And I have faith. And perhaps one day we'll have our own independent MP, Member of Parliament, because they've upset so many people. It's as if there's no concern. There's no concern shown whatsoever for the suffering of the people of Southall. And believe me, John, we have been suffering. My family have been living it for the past 5 years, and nobody showed us concern at all. And that's why we started what we're doing. And this will go all the way. And I'm just praying for the court case, because they're not going to shut us up. They tried threatening me. It hasn't worked. So I call them a mafia, basically. I'm sorry, but that's the word I think. That's who they think they are. They think they're the mafia and we don't matter. Well, we're going to change the table around and show them that we do matter. The power of the vote is in our hand. They've been very lucky over the years, John, where they've actually got block votes from the temples, the churches, the mosques. But I think even now, they're waking up to the fact of what's going on. Southall is run by dividing the community. They would rather go and speak to the leaders in these religious houses rather than door knocking. As one councillor said, I don't have to do canvassing in Southall. They're going to vote me in anyway. That's how things are, John, in Southall. Shameful. But I appreciate your time. If we can help, I always leave my phone number on at the top. At the end, you can take my number and you can call us. That's not a problem. I'd very happily walk with you to the business in Southall. That's not a problem at all. Sophia and anybody else?
Yep. So we've got I can't pronounce her name again. What's her name? Yasmin, isn't it? It's Yasmin from the site. Let me just ask her to unmute.
Yes.
Yeah.
Southall Waterside, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you, and I know you are running out of time, but I just kind of wanted to kind of elaborate in what the other gentleman just said, and I think people are just basically putting their faith into these people and thinking, you know, that they are looking in the best interest, and everybody's kind of busy, you know, with their own life, especially now with the whole pandemic, you know. And I realized things need to be followed up by the individuals, and people don't simply have time for that no more. And I think that's why people like Cash, for example, need to put pressure on these kind of people. I will give you an example. I've contacted Berkeley myself about I think a week ago, and kind of explained them, because I came across somewhere on the internet that that they're supposed to be doing safety checks, and they're supposed to be kind of doing investigation in the ground itself, to see whether chemicals that come out of the ground are safe or not. And that's basically asking a thief to do his own, you know, doing his own investigation, which is really bizarre to me. Nevertheless, so I've asked him, I said, so where is that document? Because apparently you're supposed to be doing that once a month, and I live here and I've never seen anybody coming in, and I'm supposed to be, people supposed to be in the suits, I assume, I don't know, but I've never seen anybody coming here, taking some samples from the ground and, you know, and publishing that. So I said, where do you publish those kind of stuff? You know, and who, how do we know that you do this kind of, that you do these requirements? And I was basically told by the lady I've spoken to, is like, why do you want this information? And what do you need the data with? Because you are not scientists. So I said to her, you don't know my background. I should have a medical background. But I said, nevertheless, I said, you know, where do you publish this stuff? And I should be able to be seeing this stuff on your website, or, you know, I don't need the numbers, but I need to know that you're actually doing this. I said, for example, when the cleaner comes to our flat and cleans it, there's a big letter on the wall next to the lift where it says, you know, this person came in this time, and there you go. So I know this person came here to clean and do something. So where do I see that from Berkeley? The lady was very shocked and said that she was going to investigate that and will get back to me. And then I got an email 2 days ago, like a standard email. And I was thinking to myself, you know, this is not, you know, I have no time for it today, but I will definitely reply back to it, because I don't want a standard email. I want you to give me the information that I've asked for, meaning I want to know when these people come, when did they come, how long have you been doing this investigation? And I think that's what makes it difficult for certain people, because they can't do this. They can't call these organizations and put pressure on it. The same thing with these councillors, with this MP. You know, there need to be people that kind of follow up what they're saying and make sure that they do it. So yeah, that's my 2P. So
No,
I
I
think we
appreciate
need
that. But can I just please add this to the conversation? When we were walking around, we used to go knocking on doors, and we had the Guardian newspaper with us. And at that time, the forms were not done. So we took the details manually. We wrote them in a book. And when the medical forms were ready, we went back knocking on the same doors. Would you believe, in one road, which is the closest to the school, everybody got well all of a sudden, because the counsellors had been in there talking to people, promising them lies. The word I'm using is correct. They were promising them lies. The plan is that your property prices are going to go up. What good is the property price to me or to my family if we are no longer here? Shameful, shameful. That's very below the belt, councillors. But no, I say power to the people. If we all get together, I'm sure we can achieve a lot. We already have. So this is the way to do it, you know. So my advice to you, sister, is very simple. If you could go around, speak to your neighbors, because when we went there with the Guardian newspaper, a lot of people were afraid to speak. They would speak in private, some of them, but they wouldn't go on camera. I don't know if you've seen the film from the Guardian.
I have.
Did you see the film from the Guardian?
I have. And can I add one thing? Because it's exactly what Sufyan said earlier. And the thing is, we have a lot of ethnic minority people that live here. And I think there's 3 buildings that are that belong to Catalyst. And all the 3 buildings, there are people that are an ethnic minority. And all these people came from flats where they were based on a temporary accommodation. So like Sufyan said, most of them are afraid. And I have spoken to them. I spoke to you, Joe, about it as well. Sure. I've spoken to many of them. They're scared because they don't want to be kicked out of the flats and then put back on temporary accommodation. And I can totally understand that. There are people who are saying that now, actually, I think when we came here, we never noticed the smell. We never noticed it. And I think it took about, I think a year, well into a year, that we noticed the smell. And then people were like, and I think that's when you came around with the Guardian. And people
That's
were
correct.
like, yeah, people are very reluctant. And now I think people are feeling a little bit the side effects, I'll say, from a smell, but they still are kind of reluctant. And I think they need people who kind of give them that courage that they are doing something about the issue, so that they can come forward. And I think also people need to know that they can't lose their properties. Ealing Council will not come here, Catalyst will not come here and then kick you out the flat. So I think that's why I kind of said there are a lot of people who do not know their rights legally and are afraid, because they are, and I don't want to kind of put them all in the same genre, but they are an ethnic minority. So they're scared, they don't know their rights, they don't know, they don't speak the language. So I think that's a lot to do with that.
And that's the thing. I mean, the gentleman I spoke to, I think he was from Afghanistan, and he said, if I get kicked out, myself and my 2 kids will become homeless. Yeah. And that's not correct. If you're homeless, the council have a duty. If you have dependents on you, you have to be housed, because it's an emergency, because your kids aren't safe out on the street. Yes, an adult, according to the law, can fend for themselves, but if you're under the age of 18 and you live with your parents, you have to be housed. Now, I mean, I've been through it. I'm in the process of moving out, but I can't move into anywhere. I can't even rent a studio in Southall because it's far too expensive here. So I've had to look outside of the borough, and it's a shame really. So I've grown up here for the last 19 years, my whole life basically. I've lived in my grandfather's house practically my whole life. So I grew up with him, and it's a shame that I could be leaving the borough because I will still be in touch with everyone, but it's just a shame because, I mean, I've grown up here, so why should I be thrown out of my hometown for property prices being too high? Now they can say to me, well, get a better paying job. Well, okay, make them available then. Because what they do is they make so many cuts in places where better paying jobs aren't available for people who didn't go to university like myself, who didn't like, for example, like a couple of my good friends from high school, they've all just done their second year of uni, and now they've moved back home right during the COVID period, because obviously unis are shut and they're doing all the lectures online, and they've all wanted to obviously live out because that's what they went to uni for. So they went to social housing. Social housing said, well, no, you've got a roof over your head, we can't house you. And I was quite shocked when they told me this. So I said, yeah, I mean, there was, according to the research I did a couple of months ago, there was 8,000 vacant units in Southall, from studios to 3 beds. Yep. However, they built on certain sites like where you live, Yasmin, they built a lot of studio flats. Now, the average family in Southall has 3 kids and a mum and dad. That's 5 people. And if it's different gender, like say if there's a brother and a sister, different genders of kids, they can't sleep in the same room after the age of 7 by law. Yep. So it's like, how are you going to put 5 people in doesn't make sense. Now, they didn't do the geography properly on the area. They didn't look at our diversity, because even there was research done by the Centric Lab to say that the benzene and naphthalene have worse effects on a black and brown person than an average white person who is healthy. Now, that's the proof is in the pudding. The science doesn't lie. So why are we still suffering? Because the council doesn't listen. We've now taken it into our own hands. Hence, we're leading the forums now because the council isn't. So please do join us on our next forum. Joe, the 20th is on the weekend next month, so we can do the 19th or the 22nd. So do you want to call a date?
Is 19th Friday?
Oh, sorry, no, not 19th. The Sunday is the 20th, so it's the 18th, the Friday, or the 21st, the Monday.
21st is okay. We do 21st. Sufyan, is anybody else waiting?
Does anyone want to say anything before we wrap up the evening?
Angela?
You're on mute, Ange.
I just want to say thank you to everybody who's attended. I hope that you found it very beneficial, sharing experiences and also asking questions of the councillors who attended. And I hope that you feel invested enough to attend the next meeting.
Lovely. Thank you, Angela.
So we'll see everyone on the 21st of June then, hopefully.
Yeah. Chair, a few closing words from you.
Thank you very much for your time. It's been very pleasant. And obviously sharing ideas, sharing thoughts gives us better knowledge. So fabulous. Well done. Thank you. And good night to everybody.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Good night.